Right, so now we're going to get into the next video that told you about, which is in regards to hate. I titled it The Hidden Wounds of Hate. Now, with this particular video, it's actually going to be looking more into working with children and adolescents. However, the content is still just as important because it's still dealing with traumatic events as far as working with not only CRM or TRM, but it's also going to talk about some other modalities that you might be interested in. So sit back, relax, watch this, and then afterwards, I request that you watch the movie The Hate You Give. Thanks again for taking your time to listen. And now on to the lecture.
When children experience hate, whether through bullying, discrimination, exclusion, or harsh stereotypes, it sends a powerful and painful message. You don't belong. For a young person whose sense of self is still developing, that message doesn't just hurt, it reshapes how they see the world and themselves. Hate often teaches children to be afraid of standing out. They start to feel shame about who they are, their appearance, culture, family, or even the sound of their name. Over time, this shame can lead them to hide parts of themselves to avoid being targeted again. Psychologically, that's a heavy burden to carry. It's like being told to be safe, you have to stop being you. This loss of authenticity interferes with identity formation, a crucial process in childhood and adolescence during which individuals discover what makes them unique, lovable, and worthy. Instead of building confidence, children may begin to doubt their value or disconnect from their community. Emotionally, hate erodes trust, not only in others, but in the child's own sense of worth. The brain, wired to protect against danger, stays on alert for rejection or threat. That constant state of fear makes it difficult to learn, play, or form healthy attachments. Over time, it can even alter how emotions are regulated, making sadness deeper, anger sharper, and hope harder to hold on to. When hate enters a child's world, it replaces curiosity and confidence with fear and self-doubt. Counseling and caring relationships help reopen the path to belonging, reminding children that others' hate does not define them, but by their own humanity and capacity to heal. When children grow up in an environment where they experience hate, whether that comes from bullying, racism, exclusion, or rejection, their emotions and thoughts start to adapt to survive the pain. Unfortunately, these adaptations often protect them in the short term, but hurt them in the long run. Children who face hate or discrimination usually live in a state of emotional tension. They become anxious because they don't know when the next insult, rejection, or threat might come. Fear becomes a constant companion. Over time, many begin to blame themselves for what's happening, thinking, maybe I deserve it, or if I were different, people would like me. That self-blame helps them make sense of the chaos, but it also buries their self-worth under layers of guilt and shame. Cognitive responses: negative self-talk, hypervigilance, and mistrust. Their thoughts start to echo the hurtful messages they hear. I'm not good enough. People can't be trusted. This negative self-talk becomes an internal soundtrack that reinforces low self-esteem. Meanwhile, hypervigilance, constantly scanning for danger, develops as a survival skill. The child becomes quick to notice threats but slow to notice safety or kindness. They learn to expect harm, which leads to deep mistrust of others, even those trying to help. Behavioral expressions: withdrawal, aggression, or loss of motivation. On the outside, these inner struggles show up in two common ways. Withdrawal: the child becomes quiet, isolated, and avoids new experiences to stay safe. Aggression: others lash out, using anger to mask pain or to protect themselves before anyone else can hurt them. Loss of motivation: many give up, feeling like nothing they do matters, so why try? Maladaptive beliefs and self-silencing. These experiences create maladaptive beliefs, false but powerful stories the child tells themselves about how the world works. For example, if I stay quiet, maybe they'll stop. Or, if I don't trust anyone, I won't get hurt again. While these beliefs once helped them survive, they eventually become barriers to connection and healing. Some children turn inward, silencing their own voices, while others act out as a way to say, "See me," even if it's through anger. Hate changes the way children feel, think, and behave. It teaches them to see danger where there may be safety, and to mistrust themselves and others. Counseling helps undo these patterns by building safety, encouraging expression, and replacing old, painful beliefs with new, life-affirming truths, such as, I am safe now. My voice matters. I am worthy of kindness and belonging. When children experience hate, especially over and over again, it doesn't just hurt their feelings. It literally changes the way their bodies and brains function. Hate becomes embodied, woven into their stress response systems in ways that can last for years. The body's alarm system, HPA axis activation. Our bodies are wired to protect us from danger through a system called the HPA axis, short for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system. When a child feels targeted or unsafe, this system activates like a fire alarm. It releases stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, preparing the body to fight, flee, or freeze. That's fine for short-term danger, but when hate or discrimination is ongoing, the alarm never turns off. The child's body stays stuck in a state of chronic vigilance, even in safe spaces like school or home. How chronic stress affects the brain. Over time, this constant state of alert reshapes the developing brain. The amygdala, the brain's fear detector, becomes hyperactive, making children more sensitive to perceived threats. The prefrontal cortex, which supports reasoning, planning, and emotional control, becomes less active because stress hormones interfere with its development and communication. This imbalance means that the brain stays wired for survival rather than connection and learning. Basically, hate trains the brain to expect danger instead of safety. a pattern that can make calm, trust, and focus difficult to achieve. Emotion regulation and the stuck spiral. The longer this stress pattern continues, the harder it becomes to regulate emotions. Children might overreact to minor stressors because their body's alarm system fires too quickly. Or they might shut down completely, feeling emotionally numb. This cycle, activation, overwhelm, shutdown, is what trauma experts describe as the stuck spiral or dysregulated nervous system. It's not a matter of willpower or attitude. It's biology responding to a world that feels unsafe. The hope, rewiring the spiral. Here's the good news. The brain and body can rewire. Through trauma-informed counseling, mindfulness, and body-based skills like grounding, resourcing, and tracking sensations, children can learn to bring their energy back into balance. This process restores what Elaine Miller-Harris calls the resilient zone, the space where the body feels calm, the mind feels clear, and emotions can move freely without overwhelming the system. The humanistic perspective, developed by Carl Rogers, is all about seeing the best in people, even when life has taught them to see the worst in themselves. Rogers believed that every person has an innate drive toward growth, healing, and self-fulfillment, what he called self-actualization. But to move toward that growth, people, especially children, need one essential thing: a safe, accepting relationship. The counselor as a corrective emotional experience. When children have experienced hate, rejection, or constant criticism, they start to believe deep down that they are unlovable or not enough. In therapy, the counselor becomes a corrective emotional experience, a relationship that challenges those painful messages. Instead of judgment, the child encounters acceptance. Instead of being ignored, they're heard. Over time, that safe space begins to rewrite the story. Maybe I am worthy of kindness. Maybe people can care about me for who I really am. The 3 core conditions for healing. Rogers identified 3 essential qualities that make this kind of healing possible. Empathy. The counselor genuinely understands and feels with the client. It's not just, I hear you, but I get how that feels. For a child, empathy says, you're not alone in this. Congruence. The counselor is authentic, not hiding behind professional distance or pretense. This demonstrates honesty and helps children trust that relationships can be genuine and safe. Unconditional positive regard. This is the big one. It means accepting and valuing the child no matter what they say, feel, or have done. It's not about approving every behavior. It's about affirming the person's worth behind the behavior. Restoring self-worth and belonging. Children who have been targets of hate often internalize the idea, something about me must be wrong. Unconditional positive regard helps dismantle that belief. It tells the child, through tone, body language, and consistency, you are good, you matter, and nothing can change that. That consistent acceptance becomes the foundation for self-acceptance, the ability to see oneself as worthy of love and belonging. When children experience this kind of relationship, they begin to mirror it inwardly, developing self-compassion and a stronger sense of identity. Carl Rogers taught that healing happens through relationship. Empathy softens the walls of fear. Congruence builds trust. And unconditional positive regard reminds children that their value is not up for debate. In the context of hate and trauma, this approach doesn't just counsel, it reparents the wound itself, teaching each child to believe again, I am enough, I am seen, I belong. When children or adolescents are exposed to hate, whether through bullying, racism, rejection, or exclusion, they don't just hear the words, they begin to believe them. Over time, those external messages turn into internal thoughts that shape how they feel, how they act, and even how they see the world. That's where cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, becomes a powerful tool. CBT helps clients identify, challenge, and replace distorted thoughts that cause emotional pain and build healthier thinking patterns that support resilience and belonging. Hate often teaches children distorted ways of thinking about themselves and others, such as, I'm not good enough, people like me don't belong, if I try to fit in, I'll just get hurt again. These are called cognitive distortions, automatic thoughts that feel true because painful experiences have reinforced them. Children may generalize, everyone hates me, or personalize, it's my fault I'm different. In CBT, counselors help youth slow down these thought spirals, name them, and see them for what they are, habits of thinking, not facts. Once distorted thoughts are identified, CBT introduces cognitive restructuring, teaching children to evaluate their thoughts and test them against reality. Example, thought, no one likes me at school. Challenge, is there anyone kind or friendly? Replacement, some people might not like me, but others do, and that means I can build connections. Through this process, the counselor and child work together to build adaptive beliefs, such as, others' prejudice doesn't determine my worth. I can be proud of who I am. Kindness and courage can coexist with pain. These new beliefs don't deny the reality of hate. They reframe the child's power and agency in response to it. Hate often causes children to withdraw or shut down. They stop participating in activities, connecting with peers, or trying new things. Behavioral activation is about gently reintroducing positive, meaningful activities to restore energy and hope. Counselors help the child. Set small, achievable goals. I'll join the art club once this week. Reconnect with things that bring pleasure or pride. Practice acts of self-kindness and social courage, saying hello first, sharing in group work, etc. As children take these small steps, their mood begins to lift, not just because the activity feels good, but because it reinforces new beliefs about capability, belonging, and safety. CBT literally helps rewire the brain. Every time a child replaces a hateful thought with a compassionate or balanced one, they strengthen new neural connections that support resilience and self-acceptance. Over time, they move from I'm broken because of hate to I can heal despite it. CBT offers children and adolescents the tools to recognize and name distorted beliefs rooted in hate. Challenge those beliefs with compassion and evidence. Replace them with adaptive, empowering thoughts. Rebuild confidence through positive action. In doing so, CBT doesn't erase painful experiences. It helps youth reclaim authorship of their own story, one balanced thought and brave behavior at a time. If hate plants the seed of fear, CBT helps water the roots of courage. The Community Resiliency Model, CRM, and the Trauma Resiliency Model, TRM, teach simple mind-body skills that help people calm their nervous system, feel safer in their bodies, and bounce back during challenging moments. CRM is designed for everyday people and communities, while TRM is used more in therapy to help individuals heal after trauma. One of the core ideas in both models is the resilient zone, the space inside us where we feel steady, calm enough, and able to think clearly. When children face hate, discrimination, or hurtful experiences, their nervous system can jump into survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. CRM and TRM skills give them tools to return to their resilient zone so they don't stay stuck in that pain, as the skills help children deal with hate. Grounding helps children feel connected to the present moment when hateful words or actions make them feel unsafe or overwhelmed. Simple actions like noticing their feet on the floor or paying attention to their breath signal to the body, I am safe right now. Resourcing teaches children to remember people, places, activities, or cultural strengths that bring them comfort, pride, and joy. This builds an inner shield of safety and love that can counteract the harm of hate. Expanding the resilient zone means helping children spend more time feeling secure, confident, and emotionally balanced. As their resilient zone grows, they can handle tough emotions, speak up for themselves, and respond to hate with strength rather than fear. Therefore, CRM and TRM give children body-based tools to cope with hate in healthy ways. Grounding helps them feel safe. Resourcing reminds them they are loved and valued. And expanding their resilient zone builds resilience so hate doesn't define their identity or limit their future. Multicultural approaches in counseling and education recognize that children and teens do not grow up in a one-size-fits-all world. Their experiences are shaped by their race, culture, language, religion, family values, gender identity, abilities, and community history. A multicultural lens says your identity matters, your story matters, and how you experience the world is unique and valid. Instead of expecting children to fit in, multicultural approaches help them feel seen, valued, and understood for who they are, including the parts of them that society may overlook or judge. Sociocultural trauma happens when children are hurt or devalued because of their identity. This can include racism, discrimination, bullying, stereotypes, immigration stress, cultural shame, or generational trauma. When children learn that their reactions to discrimination are normal and connected to real social experiences, not personal weakness, they feel relief, validation, and empowerment. Multicultural approaches invite children and teens to explore, who am I? Where do I come from? And what shaped my worldview? Through guided self-reflection, they learn to understand how their identity influences their emotions and experiences, recognize internalized messages, both positive and harmful, from society, embrace cultural strengths passed down through family and community, develop language to talk about fairness, inclusion, and personal values. Self-reflection helps youth move from confusion or self-blame to confidence and self-acceptance. When children and adolescents experience hate, especially when it comes from caregivers, peers, or authority figures, it shakes the very foundation of their ability to trust. Hate says, "You're not safe here." Attachment repair and counseling is the process of helping them experience the opposite message. You are safe, you matter, and relationships can be dependable again. Children who've been hurt by rejection or prejudice often view relationships through a lens of mistrust. Even caring adults may seem unpredictable or unsafe. Before a child can process trauma, they must feel safe in the relationship with the counselor. That begins with consistent, attuned presence, showing up on time, listening without judgment, and remembering small details that matter to the child. Each moment of reliability is a micro repair, a new message to the nervous system that not everyone will abandon or harm them. If you show up for me, maybe the world isn't as dangerous as I thought. Many children respond to hate with anger or defiance, not because they're bad, but because aggression is a shield. It's a survival strategy that says, I'll hurt you before you hurt me. Counselors practicing attachment repair don't meet aggression with punishment or control. They meet it with curiosity and containment. I can see you're angry. I wonder what's underneath that. You don't have to push me away to show me you're scared. When aggression is met with calm empathy instead of rejection, the child learns that connection can exist even in conflict. This transforms aggression from a weapon into a signal of unmet need, often the need to be seen, protected, or believed. Attachment theory tells us that every child needs a secure base, a dependable relationship they can return to when the world feels uncertain. Hate damages that base by teaching children that love is conditional, that they must hide parts of who they are to stay accepted. In therapy, the counselor helps rebuild this foundation by validating the child's pain without defining them by it, encouraging emotional expression rather than suppression, modeling boundaries, empathy, and respect. The message becomes, you don't have to earn safety here. You already have it. From this place of safety, children begin to explore the world again with more confidence and emotional flexibility. They test relationships, experience success, and start to internalize the belief that trust is possible and love can last. As trust grows, children become less reactive and more open to vulnerability. They can share their fears instead of acting them out. They can receive care without flinching or testing it. And most importantly, they begin to regulate their emotions, no longer swinging between shutdown and outbursts, but moving within what Elaine Miller Karras calls the resilient zone. Attachment repair is, at its core, relational reparenting. It's the slow, steady rebuilding of belief in human goodness, one empathic moment at a time. In summary, trust is rebuilt through consistency and presence. Aggression transforms when met with calm, curious empathy. Security is restored when a child learns they are safe and worthy of love just as they are. In treating children affected by hate, attachment repair reminds us that healing doesn't start with insight. It starts with relationship. Before a child can believe in the world again, they must believe that someone sees them and won't walk away. When working with children and adolescents who have been hurt by hate or discrimination, counselors must blend safety, story, and support. Each counseling intervention should meet the client exactly where they are, not forcing healing, but creating space for it to unfold. Before exploring painful memories or emotions, psychological and physical safety must be established. Children who have faced hate or trauma live with bodies and minds that expect danger. They can't process feelings until they feel safe enough to do so. Counselors begin by creating predictable routines for sessions, same time, same tone, using grounding and resourcing skills from CRM/TRM to help regulate the nervous system, teaching body awareness. What does calm feel like in your body? Building trust through consistent presence and gentle curiosity. Safety becomes the foundation of all healing, a new message to the child's nervous system. You're not in danger anymore. You're allowed to rest. Once safety is established, children can begin to make sense of what happened. Trauma often traps them in a story of helplessness or shame. It happened because I'm weak, or people like me don't belong. Through narrative reframing, counselors help children take back authorship of their own stories. Strategies include encouraging storytelling, drawing, or play to express experience symbolically, reflecting patterns of strength, courage, or survival the child already shows, introducing new perspectives. You didn't survive because you're lucky. You survived because you're strong. This process helps move the child from victim identity to survivor identity, and eventually to thriver identity. It teaches them that they are more than what was done to them. You can't erase the past, but you can choose how your story continues. Children rarely heal in isolation. Their environments need to heal with them. Family psychoeducation involves teaching caregivers and family members how trauma and hate affect the child's emotions, behavior, and body. To maintain momentum and deepen recovery, counselors often integrate other interventions. Creative therapies, art, music, play, help express what words can't reach. Mind-body approaches, mindfulness, yoga, breathing, regulate physiological arousal. Peer or community groups, restore a sense of belonging through shared experiences. Advocacy and empowerment work, help youth reclaim agency and voice in their environments. These interventions reinforce one another, body, story, family, and community all working together to rebuild resilience. Counselors might explain how trauma responses, shutdown, anger, or withdrawal are protective, not bad behavior. Model calm communication and active listening. Teach family members regulation skills so they can co-regulate with the child. Encourage families to affirm the child's cultural, racial, and personal identity.
I will spare you the regurgitation of the CRM and TRM models, but I did want to point out the fact that when we're talking about building resilience, building cultural pride, CRM, which is the community resiliency model, is an effective tool in that it allows various cultures, including Black culture, to be able to help people learn how to deal with racial bullying, to be able to learn how to regulate their emotions, as well as reinforce their familial support, and take pride of who they are as an individual and as a in their race. So, with that being said, as you teach a person how to be more in tune with their biological part of themselves, they also become more attuned to what surrounds them and how it impacts them both physically and mentally. So that's where CRM gets to play an important role. And we can incorporate CBT to help with cognitive restructuring in that process. Just pointing out a few key concepts that I want you to be aware of when we're talking about how we can heal oneself or others in regards to hate. The isolation effects, this is where hate permeates. So you want to teach your clients, you want to teach the children or adolescents that you might be working with how to be able to respond to hate by building their support systems by being able to have more than just one friend, um, to be able to rely on adults and not feel that their authority is going to prohibit them in any way. Counseling reconnection is also very important in that it's going to bridge the gap in terms of talking about hate. How do we connect? How do we build our communities? How do we get our communities involved so one don't feel so isolated, so alone, or feel bullied when someone is projecting their hate toward them. And then, of course, systemic healing. This is a more holistic approach in which we work toward the social cultural context. And counselors, you're an advocate. I think I said how we may wear many hats, that in therapy as well as in our communities. We're not only going to be a clinician, we're going to be a teacher, we're going to be a case manager, we're going to be able to help people put their lives back together by demonstrating and showing them through resources, through grounding, if we take the CRM approach. So I wanted to just make sure you keep those in mind because that will help you in terms of healing the impact hate has had on particularly children and adolescents. All right, so last but not least, let's talk a little bit how we reflect on dealing with trauma, particularly with children. How we need to be able to recognize when trauma exists because, of course, children and adolescents may not present the same way an adult would. So you want to be able to understand hate and what hate can do and how it will be reflected as far as symptomology. Then you need to address the different barriers that might be in play, looking at those different issues, particularly systemically, and how we can incorporate social, cultural, and uh, advocacy in terms of building and addressing situations that makes hate grow. Then, of course, you have to realize your own theoretical lens when we're talking about instituting or implementing theoretical perspectives, you have to have a good understanding and a good awareness of it. Again, you don't want to just practice anything and say, oh, okay, I got it because I read a book. Consult, consult, consult is the key method here in which you learn more. Attend those conferences. Conferences is going to provide you with plenty of information that is more than not evidence-based interventions. So you want to be able to use it. However, we do recommend using holistic approaches as well, particularly in this environment working with kids. And just remember you have to be aware not only of the individual but their cultural background, whatever type of systemic influences that might have on them, and especially when they're dealing with stereotypes, stigmas, and hate. So I'll stop on this slide. So this is wrapping up our lecture this evening on hate. I hope that the information will be proved to be useful for you. Here are the references in which information has been gathered, but there's a plethora of more information out there. All you have to do is click on it. Um, Again, I did include a movie for you to watch, which is, something that demonstrates hate and demonstrate how hate can impact children and adolescents. This one particularly with teenagers. So please make sure you watch that. Um, and have a great week. Thanks again.